Welcome, listeners. Before we dive into today's episode, I have an important update for you. This is our final episode of the year, but don't worry, we'll be back in 2026 with brand new episodes of Criminology Chats. We've got some incredible content lined up for next year. Our first episode of 2026 will drop on January 22nd at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. After that, you can expect new episodes every 2 weeks. In the meantime, please keep listening, share the show with your friends on social media, and help us grow this amazing community. As always, remember, be safe out there. Now let's get to today's topic. This is totally a fictitious case and made solely for entertainment purposes for our listeners, and we hope that our listeners enjoy this episode as much as we enjoyed making it for you for this holiday season. The reindeer case. This case is full of mystery, a touch of magic, and a whole lot of belief. On Christmas Eve, 2023, at approximately 9:47 p.m., a man disappeared from the Westfield shopping plaza in the small college town of Pinewood, Massachusetts. He left behind $4,300 in charity donations, a half-eaten sugar cookie, and a red velvet suit that would later test positive for traces of something the forensic team could only describe as impossible. His name was Nicholas Claus, but the people of Pinewood knew him simply as Santa. What happened in the next 7 hours would defy explanation. A sleigh, 8 reindeer, a college dormitory roof that would never be the same. And one question that haunts investigators to this day, was Nicholas Claus just a mall Santa who snapped, or was it something far more inexplicable? This is the reindeer case. December 24th, 2023, Christmas Eve. For most people in Pinewood, Massachusetts, it was a night of anticipation, of family gatherings, of last-minute shopping at the Westfield Plaza Mall. The mall was scheduled to close at 10 p.m., giving employees just enough time to get home to their own celebrations. But for Nicholas Claus, this evening's shift Santa at the mall's North Pole experience, Christmas Eve would be the last night on Earth as we know it. We will talk with Karen Henderson, 52-year-old manager of the Westfield Plaza Mall since 2006. She hired Nicholas Claus in early November, just as holiday season was ramping up. His resume was, to say at the least, unusual. Karen, tell us about Nicholas Claus.
Look, I've been managing this mall for 17 years. I've seen a lot of Santas come and go, but Nick was different. He took the job seriously. Too seriously, maybe. He'd show up 2 hours early. He knew every kid's name after they told him once, and he absolutely refused to take his lunch break. He'd just say, "Santa doesn't take breaks, Karen. The children need me." His references were all from the North Pole. I thought it was a joke, you know? Like, he was really committed to the character. One reference was from someone named Jingleberry the Elf. I called the number, and I swear to God, someone answered, "Toy Workshop Quality Control Division." I thought it was his friend playing along. Now, I'm not so sure.
Thank you, Karen. Now, Nicholas Claus was 67 years old, stood 5 foot 8 inches tall, and weighed approximately 280 pounds. He had a naturally white beard that required no artificial enhancements. That was a rarity in the mall Santa industry. His background check came back clean. Too clean, according to Detective Raymond Martinez of the Pinewood Police Department. He was assigned to the case of the missing Claus. Detective Martinez, please tell us what you found out doing your research on Nicholas.
When I say clean, I mean spotless. No parking tickets, no speeding violations, nothing. In 67 years, this guy had never once appeared in any database. No social security number prior to 2020, no birth certificate we could find. It's like he just materialized 3 years ago. That alone should have raised red flags.
But it didn't, because the weeks leading up to Christmas Eve, Nicholas Claus was, by all accounts, the perfect Santa. Children loved him. Parents praised him. The mall's holiday revenue was up 23% from the previous year. Little did they know, everything was about to change. At 9:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve, the last child left Santa's workshop. A security camera captured the moment. A little girl in a red dress waving goodbye to Nicholas Claus, who waved back with what witnesses would later describe as an expression of profound sadness. We will hear from the security guard that evening, Tyrone Williams, next.
I was doing my rounds, right? Making sure everyone was clearing out. I passed by the North Pole setup and Santa was just sitting there in his chair, staring at this donation jar. We'd been collecting for the Children's Hospital all season, at about $4,000 in there, mostly cash. He was just staring at it. I said, "Hey Nick, we're closing up in 10 minutes. He looked at me and I swear his eyes were like glistening, like he was about to cry. He said, "Tyrone, do you believe in magic?" I laughed it off, told him I believed in overtime pay. That was the last thing I ever said to him.
It's now 9:52 p.m. Nicholas Claus stood up from his throne. Security footage shows him carefully removing his Santa hat and placing it on the armrest. He picked up the donation jar, a large glass container filled with cash and checks, and he held it against his chest. Then he walked towards the mall's east exit. You know, he never made it outside. Let's hear what Karen has to say about that.
I got a call from Tyrone. He was freaking out. He said Santa had vanished. Just vanished. I thought maybe he'd gone to the bathroom or something, but Tyrone insisted. He said he'd been watching the East Corridor and Nick had walked down it, but never came out the other end. It's a straight hallway. There's nowhere to go except out the exit or back the way you came.
Mall security reviewed the footage immediately. What they saw would perplex investigators for months to come. Now, Detective Martinez will talk about what they observed in the footage.
The footage shows Nicholas Claus walking down the East Corridor at 9:53 p.m. He's carrying the donation jar. He's moving at a normal pace, not running, not acting suspicious. Then, at timestamp 9:53:47, there's a brief flicker in the camera, less than a second. When the image stabilizes, he's gone. The donation jar's on the floor, but it's empty. The money is gone. Nicholas Claus is gone. And here's the thing that still keeps me up at night. There's a scorch mark on the floor, circular, about 6 feet in diameter. The forensics team said it was consistent with extreme heat exposure, but there was no fire, no smoke, nothing that would explain it.
The Pinewood Police Department was called by 10:17 p.m. that evening, and by 10:45 they had secured the scene and begun interviewing witnesses. By midnight, they had more questions than answers. But the real mystery was just beginning, because 7 minutes away, on the campus of Pinewood University, something was about to crash into the roof of Morrison Hall, and it would change everything. Morrison Hall was a 4-story dormitory on the eastern edge of Pinewood University campus. It houses approximately 200 students, most of whom had gone home for winter break. On Christmas Eve, only 17 students remained in the building. At 4:23 a.m. on Christmas morning, those 17 students were awakened by what they would later describe as the sound of God's sleigh hitting a brick wall. There were several students that was interviewed, the first being Josh Patterson. Josh was 19 and a sophomore studying engineering. His room was on the 3rd floor, directly below the impact site. He was one of the first students to reach the roof access door. He is from Oklahoma. Tell us what you saw and heard, Josh.
Dude, I was dead asleep. I'd been up until like 2 a.m. playing video games, and then I hear this boom, like not just a boom, but a boom. The whole building shook. My first thought was earthquake, but we don't get earthquakes in Massachusetts. My second thought was terrorist attack, which, dark, but it's 4 a.m. on Christmas, and something just hit our building. I ran to the window, and I could see debris falling past, shingles, pieces of wood, and I swear to God, I saw a bell, like a sleigh bell, just tumbling through the air, catching the moonlight. The door to the roof is usually locked, but it had been blown open, just hanging off its hinges. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and started climbing the stairs. I could hear this weird sound like jingling and heavy breathing, animal breathing. I got to the top, pushed through the doorway, and
What Josh Patterson saw on that roof would sound to any reasonable person completely insane. But Josh wasn't the only witness. 16 other students would corroborate his story, each adding their own disturbing details.
there was a sleigh, a full-sized red and gold sleigh embedded in the roof like a plane crash. The front end had punched through the shingles and into the attic space, and there were reindeer, 8 of them, still attached to the sleigh by these leather harnesses. They were alive, man, breathing hard, eyes wide, steam coming off their bodies like they'd been running. One of them looked at me, and I swear it looked guilty, like it knew it had messed up.
The next student that was talked to was Maya Chen, 20-year-old junior studying veterinary medicine. She attempted to calm the reindeer while other students called 911. But there was something else on that roof, something that would connect this bizarre accident to the disappearance at the Westfield Plaza Mall. Here's what Maya had to say about this incident.
I got up there maybe 30 seconds after Josh. I'm pre-vet, so I immediately went into animal assessment mode. These reindeer were in distress. They were tangled in the harnesses. One of them had a cut on its leg, and they were all hyperventilating. But here's what was weird. They were warm, like radiating heat. It was 18 degrees outside, and these animals felt like they had internal temperatures of like 110. That's not normal. That's not possible, actually. Reindeer are Arctic animals. They should have been cold.
Well, as you can see, the case has got many different turns in it. The next college student that was talked to is Derek Thompson. Derek, please tell us what you observed and what you did.
I was filming everything on my phone. Don't judge me, it's instinct. And I panned over to the sleigh. The back of it was filled with bags. Big brown burlap bags with drawstrings. Some of them had split open in the crash, and stuff was spilling out. Toys, like handmade wooden toys, a teddy bear, a train set, a doll with a porcelain face. But also, there was money, cash, lots of it, just scattered across the roof, blowing around in the wind. And there was a red coat, a Santa coat, draped over the driver's seat. It was empty, but it was still warm. I touched it, and it felt like someone had just taken it off.
At 4:47 a.m., Pinewood police arrived at Morrison Hall. At 4:52 a.m., Detective Martinez received a call that would make his blood run cold.
Dispatch told me there'd been an incident at the university, a sleigh crash. I thought it was a prank at first, some kind of Christmas party gone wrong. But then they mentioned the reindeer, the toys, the money, and the Santa suit. I was still at the mall, standing in front of that scorch mark where Nicholas Claus had vanished. I looked at my watch. 7 hours. He'd been gone for exactly 7 hours. I got in my car and drove to campus doing 90 the whole way.
What Detective Martinez found on that roof would launch an investigation unlike any in Pinewood's history. Because the evidence suggested something impossible, Nicholas Claus hadn't just disappeared from the mall. He had somehow traveled 7 miles, crashed a sleigh into a dormitory, and vanished again. But that was when things took a dark turn. The crash site was a forensic nightmare. Reindeer hoof prints covered the roof in a chaotic pattern. The sleigh itself was an antique, hand carved from wood that carbon dated would later suggest was over 400 years old. The toys in the bags had no manufacturer's labels, no barcodes, no indication of where they had been made. And then there was the money.
We counted $4,300 in cash scattered across that roof, the exact amount that had been in the donation jar at the mall. Same denominations, same ratio of bills. We even found a check made out to Pinewood Children's Hospital signed by a woman named Dorothy Brennan who had donated at the mall earlier that evening. There was no question. This money came from that jar.
But how? The mall was 7 miles away. Nicholas Claus had vanished at 9:53 p.m. The crash occurred at 4:23 a.m. What happened in those 6.5 hours? The next college student to shed some light on this case is Amanda Rodriguez. She's a 21-year-old senior studying psychology and was one of the only witnesses who saw the sleigh before it impacted on the dormitory roof. Her testimony will prove crucial in establishing a timeline, but it also raised more questions.
I was in the common room on the first floor when it happened. I couldn't sleep, so I was watching TV. Around 4:15 a.m., I heard something outside, like wind, but not wind, more like whooshing. I went to the window and looked up, and I saw something moving across the sky. It was dark, but the moon was bright, and I could see a silhouette. It looked like a sleigh with animals pulling it. I thought I was hallucinating, honestly. I'd been up for like 20 hours studying for finals, but then it started descending, coming down fast. Too fast, and I realized it was heading straight for our building. I screamed, but by the time anyone heard me, it had already hit.
If we believe Amanda, and I have no reason not to, then this sleigh was airborne, flying at 4:15 a.m. on Christmas morning. Now, I'm a rational man. I believe in evidence, in facts, but the evidence was telling me that Nicholas Claus somehow transported himself and $4,300 in cash 7 miles through the air in a sleigh pulled by reindeer, and then he crashed.
The reindeer were transported to a local veterinary facility for examination. Dr. Patricia Holloway, an exotic animal specialist, was called in to assess them. Dr. Holloway, please provide our listeners with the assessment.
I've worked with reindeer before. I've treated caribou, elk, moose, all members of the Cervidae family. But these animals, they were different. Their muscle density was off the charts, like Olympic athletes. Their lung capacity was enormous, way beyond what you'd expect. And their hooves? The hooves had scorch marks on them, like they'd been exposed to extreme friction. When I ran a treadmill test on one of them, just to check mobility after the crash, it hit speeds of 65 miles per hour before I had to stop the test. Reindeer don't run that fast. Nothing runs that fast except cheetahs, and they can't sustain it. These animals were built for something else, something impossible.
The sleigh itself was examined by Dr. Robert Chen, a professor of engineering at Pinewood University and a specialist in aerodynamics. Here's what he had to say.
From a physics standpoint, this sleigh should not be able to fly. It has no engine, no propulsion system, and yet the damage pattern on the roof suggests it was traveling at approximately 120 miles per hour at the moment of impact. The runners, the bottom of the sleigh, showed signs of atmospheric heating consistent with high-altitude flight. There were ice crystals embedded in the wood that could only form at altitudes above 30,000 feet. This thing was in the stratosphere. But how does a wooden sleigh reach the stratosphere?
The investigation was expanding, but so was the media attention. By noon on Christmas Day, news crews had descended on Pinewood. The story was everywhere. Mall Santa vanishes. Sleigh crashes into dorm. It sounded like a joke, but for Detective Martinez and his team, it was anything but funny.
We started digging into Nicholas Claus's background more aggressively. We contacted the address he'd listed on his employment application. It was a P.O. box in Alaska. We called the phone number disconnected. We searched for family members. Nothing. This man was a ghost. And then we found the storage unit.
On December 27th, 2 days after the crash, investigators discovered that Nicholas Claus had been renting a storage unit on the outskirts of Pinewood, Unit 247 at the secure store facility. What they found inside would change the entire trajectory of the investigation.
We got a warrant and opened the unit. It was filled with, I don't even know how to describe it, lists. Thousands of lists printed on old-fashioned paper organized by year. Names, addresses, and next to each name, a designation, nice or naughty. We found lists going back decades, centuries maybe. Some of the paper was so old it crumbled when we touched it, and the names, we cross-referenced them. They were real people, people from all over the world. Children, mostly, but some adults too.
With routes marked in red ink, there were weather charts, astronomical calculations, and what appeared to be flight plans.
There was a journal, leather-bound, filled with handwritten entries. The handwriting matched samples we'd taken from Nicholas Claus's employment paperwork. The entries went back years. They were the diary of someone who believed he was Santa Claus, or maybe someone who actually was.
Detective Martinez provided excerpts from the journal which painted a picture of a man struggling with an impossible burden.
December 10th, 2023. The reindeer are getting older. Dasher's left rear leg has been bothering him. I've tried everything, but mortal veterinary medicine can only do so much. I fear this may be our last flight. The magic is fading. I can feel it in my bones, in the way the sleigh struggles to lift off. The world has changed. Children don't believe the way they used to. And without belief, I am nothing. Just an old man in a red suit.
The entries became more desperate as Christmas approached.
December 20th, 2023. I've been working at the mall, trying to reconnect with the children, trying to feel that spark of belief again, but it's not enough. The magic requires more. It requires faith, wonder, innocence. I collected donations for the hospital, thinking perhaps if I could do one more good deed, one more act of pure generosity, the magic would return. But I'm running out of time.
And then the final entry, dated December 24th, 2023.
Tonight is Christmas Eve, my last Christmas Eve. I can feel it. The magic is almost gone. I will take the donations to the children who need them most. I will make one final flight. If I fail, if the sleigh falls from the sky, then perhaps it's time. Perhaps the world no longer needs Santa Claus. Perhaps I'm a relic of a simpler time. But I have to try. For the children. Always for the children.
The journal entry ended there. Hours later, Nicholas Claus would vanish from the mall, and a sleigh would crash into Morrison Hall. But there was one more piece of evidence, one more clue that would tie everything together. On December 29th, a student named Emily Watkins was cleaning up debris from the roof of Morrison Hall. She was part of a volunteer crew helping with repairs. In a corner of the roof, partially hidden under a piece of torn canvas from the sleigh, she found something that had been overlooked in the initial investigation. Emily, tell us what you found.
An envelope actually addressed to the children of Pinewood. It was sealed with red wax, stamped with the image of a snowflake. I brought it to campus security, and they called the police.
Detective Martinez opened the letter in front of me. The letter was written in the same handwriting as the journal entries. It was dated December 24th, 2023, 9:45 p.m., just minutes before Nicholas Claus disappeared from the mall. Detective Martinez started to read the letter.
To the children of Pinewood and to all who still believe, I am sorry. I tried to make one last flight to deliver one last round of gifts to prove that magic still exists in this world. But the magic failed. The sleigh fell. I am fading. By the time you read this, I will be gone. But please know that I was real. I am real. Santa Claus is not a myth, not a story parents tell to make children behave. I have lived for centuries, sustained by the belief and wonder of children around the world. But belief is dying, and so am I. The money I took from the mall was meant for the children's hospital. Please ensure it reaches them. The toys in the sleigh were my final gifts. Distribute them as you see fit. And please, if you can, take care of my reindeer. They have served faithfully for longer than you can imagine. They deserve peace. Tell the children I'm sorry I couldn't finish my route. Tell them to keep believing even when the world tells them not to. Magic is real. It just needs someone to believe in it. Merry Christmas. Nicholas Claus, also known as Santa Claus, also known as Kris Kringle, also known as Father Christmas, also known as the man in red who tried his best.
The letter was authenticated by handwriting experts. The paper was tested and found to be consistent with the paper in the journal. The wax seal contained traces of a substance that forensic chemists described as chemically impossible, a compound that shouldn't exist according to known science. Detective Martinez sat in his car after reading the letter and contemplating what exactly he had been investigating.
After reading that letter, I sat in my car for an hour. Just sat there trying to process what I'd been investigating. A man disappeared. A sleigh crashed. 8 reindeer survived. And all the evidence pointed to one conclusion. Nicholas Claus was Santa Claus, the real Santa Claus, and he died trying to make one last Christmas delivery.
The investigation officially closed on January 15, 24. The cause of Nicholas Claus's disappearance was listed as unknown. The crash was ruled an accident. The $4,300 was donated to Pinewood Children's Hospital, where it funded new equipment for the pediatric wing. The toys from the sleigh were distributed to children in need throughout Pinewood. Parents reported that their children treasured these toys above all others, claiming they felt special and magical. The 8 reindeer were relocated to a private sanctuary in Alaska, where they lived under the care of Dr. Patricia Holloway. She visits them monthly and reports that they remain in excellent health, showing no signs of aging.
Those reindeer are the healthiest animals I've ever treated. It's like they're frozen in time. They should be aging, but they're not. I don't have an explanation for it. I've stopped trying to find one.
The sleigh was placed in storage as evidence, but in March 2024, it disappeared from the police impound lot. Security footage showed nothing unusual. One frame it was there, the next frame it was gone. Detective Martinez chose not to investigate further.
Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Some things are better left as questions. Do I believe Nicholas Claus was Santa Claus? I don't know. I really don't. But I know what I saw. I know what the evidence showed. And I know that on Christmas Eve, 2023, something impossible happened in Pinewood, Massachusetts.
The students of Morrison Hall have become local celebrities. They give interviews, they tell their stories, and they all maintain the same thing. They saw a sleigh, they saw reindeer, they saw magic. The 3 college students, Josh, Maya, and Amanda, are going to tell us their thoughts on what happened that evening.
People ask me all the time if I really believe it was Santa, and I tell them I don't know what I believe, but I know what I saw, and I know that every Christmas Eve now, I look up at the sky just in case there's a sleigh up there flying through the darkness, pulled by 8 reindeer who refuse to give up.
I'm a scientist. I believe in data, in evidence, in rational explanations. But those reindeer, they weren't normal. They were something else, something beyond our understanding. And if reindeer can be magic, then why not Santa Claus?
I saw it flying. I saw the sleigh in the sky. And I'll never forget the way it looked silhouetted against the moon, like something out of a dream, or a nightmare, or maybe both.
In the months following the incident, strange reports began to surface from around Pinewood. Children claimed to have received gifts on Christmas morning that their parents didn't buy, gifts that appeared under trees overnight, wrapped in paper that seemed to shimmer in the light. A local toy store owner reported that several of the wooden toys from the crashed sleigh had been brought in for repair, and when he examined them, he found that they were constructed using techniques that hadn't been used in over 200 years. And on the roof of Morrison Hall, where the sleigh had crashed, nothing will grow. The impact site remains bare, the shingle scorched, the wood beneath blackened, and its crew have tried to repair it multiple times, but the damage always returns. It's as if the roof itself remembers what happened that night. The mall manager, Karen Henderson, is going to tell us what's been going on at the mall since this incident.
After everything that happened, the mall decided not to hire a Santa for the 2024 season. It felt wrong somehow, disrespectful. We set up a memorial instead, in the spot where Nick used to sit. People leave letters there, addressed to Santa. Children, mostly, but adults too. Letters asking for help, for hope, for magic. We collect them every week. I don't know what to do with them, so I keep them in a box in my office. Sometimes I read them. Sometimes they make me cry.
Detective Martinez retired from the Pinewood Police Department in June 2024. He now teaches criminal justice at Pinewood University. He refuses to discuss the reindeer incident in detail, but he keeps a photograph on his desk. The scorch mark on the mall floor, circular and perfect, where Nicholas Claus vanished.
Every case I ever worked, I found an answer, a logical explanation, a perpetrator, a motive, a method. But this one defies logic. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the world needs a little mystery, a little magic. I just wish I could have met him, the real him. I wish I could have asked him what it was like carrying that burden for so long, making children happy for centuries. That's not a crime, that's a calling.
On December 24th, 2024, exactly 1 year after Nicholas Claus disappeared, something strange happened in Pinewood at 9:53 p.m. The exact time of his disappearance, every light in the Westfield Plaza flickered. Security cameras captured the moment. A brief flash of red light in the east corridor, right where the scorch mark used to be. And on the roof of Morrison Hall, students reported hearing bells, sleigh bells, jingling in the distance, growing fainter and fainter until they disappeared into the night sky. Josh Patterson was there, and he tells us what he observed.
I was there. I heard them. We all did. And we ran up to the roof, and there was nothing there. Just the wind and the stars and the cold. But I swear I could smell cookies, sugar cookies, like the ones they used to sell at the mall's North Pole experience, like the one Nicholas Claus was eating the night he disappeared.
The reindeer case remains one of the most bizarre, unsolved cases in Massachusetts history. Was Nicholas Claus a delusional man who believed he was Santa? Was he a con artist who staged an elaborate hoax? Or was he exactly what the evidence suggests, the real Santa Claus, making one final, desperate attempt to keep magic alive in a world that had stopped believing? The truth, like Nicholas Claus himself, remains elusive. But on Christmas Eve, if you're in Pinewood, Massachusetts, look up at the sky, listen for the sound of bells, and maybe, just maybe, you'll see something impossible. A sleigh flying through the darkness, 8 reindeer pulling with all their might, and a man in red refusing to give up. Because some things are bigger than evidence. Some things are bigger than logic. Some things require belief. 3 weeks after this episode was recorded, we received a package at our studio. No return address, postmarked from the North Pole. The actual North Pole. According to the Postal Service, though they insist that's impossible. Inside was a single item, a small wooden toy train, hand-carved with a note attached. The note read, "Thank you for telling my story. The magic isn't gone. It's just sleeping. Keep believing. N.C." were the initials on the note. We had the train examined by Dr. Robert Chin, the engineering professor who analyzed the sleigh. He confirmed it was made using the same techniques, the same type of wood. The train is currently on display in the Pinewood University Library in a glass case next to a photograph of the crashed sleigh. Children who visit the library report that sometimes late at night they can hear the train whistle. The library staff insists it's just the heating system. But we know better, don't we? The Reindeer Case is a production of Criminology Chats podcast. If you have any information about Nicholas Claus or the events of Christmas Eve 2023, please contact the Pinewood Police Department. The 8 reindeer are doing well and are not available for public viewing. The $4,300 donated to Pinewood Children's Hospital has helped over 200 children receive necessary medical care. Nicholas Claus has not been seen since December 24th, 2023. He is still listed as a missing person. If you see him, please tell him the children are still waiting. Tell him they still believe. Merry Christmas, Nick, wherever you are, and Merry Christmas to all. Criminology Chats is brought to you by the Chicago School. For more information about the institution, please visit www.thechicagoschool.edu. That's www.thechicagoschool.edu. I would like to extend my gratitude to the students who always participate in these episodes. We want to hear from our listeners, so please email us at criminologychatspodcast@gmail.com. That's CRIMINOLGYCSPODCAST@gmail.com. And also, please check out our YouTube channel at https://www.youtube.com/@criminologychatspodcast. This podcast is produced and edited by A.M. Peters with additional post-production services provided by Audio Photo Synthesis. I'd like to make a special point here to say that without her, none of these episodes would be possible. So I really put a good shout out and thank Amy very much for what she does for our podcast. I'm J.R. Ringbolt, and I eagerly anticipate you listening to our next episode. Stay safe out there.
The views and perspectives shared in these recordings are intended solely for informational purposes and do not reflect the official stance or policies of the speakers of the Chicago School. Any commercial products and manufacturers mentioned are included for informational reasons only and do not imply endorsement or approval by the speakers of the Chicago School.